You're listening to the weekly Parsha Podcast with Ari Goldway, recorded with Hashem's never-ending assistance in Ramat Beit Shemesh, Israel, 5779, 2019. This week's Parsha, outside of Israel, is Parsha Behar. In Israel, is Bechukosai. I'd like to share with you a thought on Parsha Behar. Torah tells us at the very beginning of the Parsha that Hashem spoke. Vayidaber Hashem al Moshe Har Sinai lemor. This is chapter 25, verse 1. God spoke to Moses at Mount Sinai, and he said the following. Okay, so we need to know, this was said at Mount Sinai. All the mitzvahs were said at Mount Sinai, as Rashi tells us. Why is the Torah singling out this mitzvah? We need to understand that. Hopefully we'll get an explanation of that soon. God spoke to Moses at Mount Sinai, and he said as follows. Daber el bnei Yisrael v'amarta lehem. Speak to the Jewish people and tell them, Ki savayu el ha'aretz, when you shall come to the land of Israel, asher ani noisen lachem, the land I'm giving you. V'shovsa ha'aretz Shabbos Hashem. The land has to rest. A special rest unto God. 6 years, you have to plant. You have to and prune your vineyards. And gather in all of the produce. On the 7th year, says the Torah, there's an obligation to rest. This is not just crop rotation. We're not speaking here about one person doing it one year, another person doing it a different year. The entire country, 90% agriculture, 90% farmers. Everyone has to stop and put their entire work on pause. Okay? Shabbos Hashem, it's a rest unto Hashem. More. You can't plant your field. You can't prune your vineyards. Torah says we have an obligation to keep Shemitah every 7 years. Every 7 years, everyone stops working the land, sits down, studies Torah, whatever they do, but they're not involved in their work. An amazing thing. What is the idea behind this? What is the concept of Shemitah? What is the foundational idea of Shemitah that's going on here? To understand this, we need to look to the Madregas HaAdam, the altar of Nevardik, tells us an amazing thing. An amazing pshat in the Psuk in the Torah tells us in the context of Shemitah, that a person will ask a question, Vahaya. It's going to be that a person will ask, in Tishal, you're going to ask a question. I'm sorry, I'm not quoting precisely. What are we going to eat in the Shemitah year? What are we going to eat? We're not going to be able to plant anything. We're not going to be able to prune our vineyards. What will we eat? We need to feed our families. Jews are responsible. Right? Torah says, don't worry. In the 6th year, I'm going to give you my blessings. I'm going to command my blessings upon the earth. Year 6, you'll have enough for year 6, 7, and 8. Unbelievable amount of bounty will come to you because you trusted in me. So the Alter Nevardik says, when is a person asking this question? At which point in time? In the 6th year, he already sees there's a triple blessing. In the 1st year, what's he worried about? Shemitah is far away. Says the Alter Nevardik, an amazing foundational principle. We need to understand why this principle is stated in the context of Har Sinai, of Mount Sinai. The Alter Nevardik says an amazing thing. He says that the way of a human being is, and especially a Jew, is worried about tomorrow. What are we going to eat tomorrow? What will my kids eat? How will they have a parnasa? How will they have a livelihood? How will I have a livelihood? How will I be able to provide for myself? We have a mitzvah in the 7th year. We can't work the ground. We can't work the earth. Oy vey, let's start preparing now. I have an idea. We'll do something that Yosef did. We'll take a part of our crops. We'll put it aside. Okay, so we'll be a little bit hungry. We'll put aside 1/6 of our crops each year. We'll have enough to eat in the 7th year. Says the Torah, don't do that. You have an obligation. Have bitachon. Have faith in God that you will get a triple blessing. I promise you, says Hashem. I will give you a triple blessing in year 6, 7, and 8. Don't start collecting in the 1st year, years 1 through 6. Because if you do that, a sad thing will happen. I will not give you triple blessings, explains the Madregas HaAdam. The Alter Nevardik says, the blessings only come because you trust in Hashem. If you trust in yourself and you're worried yourself, you might fulfill the mitzvah in the 7th year. But you will, because you're not going to work your field. But you will lose that on the point of the mitzvah. The reason the Torah wants us to do this is to it should be a lesson. Hislamdus habitachon. We need to learn how to trust in God. Sometimes, and I'm saying this as an extrapolation here, this is not the Madregas HaAdam, this is not the pasuk, but sometimes, this has certainly been my experience, HaKadosh Baruch Hu shows you in your life that it seems like you don't know how you're gonna have the money. And then, like a snap, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if you trust in Him, Hashem sends you what you need, sends you an opportunity, sends you something you didn't expect. You thought it was going to come this way, it comes a different way. That's Bitachon. Hashem wants us to learn Bitachon. Now, what is the idea here? My Rosh Hashiva asks, or Behar, what is the idea here? Why is this mitzvah given in the context of Har Sinai? All the mitzvahs were given at Har Sinai. Why is it Torah tells us that Hashem said this to Moshe Rabbeinu at Mount Sinai? And he explains an amazing thing. Foundational principle. Hear this idea. The Jewish people at Mount Sinai, what was going on there? What were the Jews experiencing there at Mount Sinai? They were being made into an eternal nation with a covenant with Hashem, with God, a bris, that they would be the leaders. We will be the leaders for all time of the entire world. We will be the spiritual representatives of Hashem in the world. The nations of the world will imitate us. They will copy the concept that there is one God, because that's what Hashem wanted. Hashem wanted the entire world to know that. Through whom? Through us. Now, if we are the ones who are the leaders, the ones who everyone looks to understand spiritual principles, to understand what does it mean to have a relationship with God, so then we need to have Bitachon much more than anybody else. We need to have developed this kind of trust and faith in God. It's foundational. At Har Sinai, this is it. As the Gra points out, the entire Torah, the point of the entire Torah, the reason the Torah was given was so that we should learn Bitachon, that we should learn how to trust in God. That is the idea of the entire Torah, according to the Gaon Mivilna. So that is a foundational idea. Now it's amazing and it's beautiful because this thing the Rosh Hashiva said exactly parallels a statement also of the Madregas Adam, the altar of Nevardik. And he says something amazing. Yosef HaTzadik, Joseph, he was thrown into jail. He was in jail for 10 years. Terrible time he had there. And despite the fact that it was difficult and challenging, he worked his way up. He became in charge of the entire jail. Amazing human being. Always, the name of Hashem was always, constantly he was talking about God. Right? Yosef HaTzadik becomes leader there. But what happened? He's still stuck there. He's still stuck. He can't get out. These two guys come in, the servants of Pharaoh, Sarah Mashkim, Sarah Oifim, the baker, and the wine bearer of Pharaoh. And they come in there and they say to Yosef, they had these dreams. Yosef interprets the dreams. The cupbearer is going to get out in 3 days. The baker is going to be killed in 3 days. And Yosef is able to explain the dreams. And he knows that these guys are his ticket out. Because the only person, as Rosh Hashiva explained, the only person who can get him out is Pharaoh. Pharaoh's the one who has the power to get him out of there. No one else can get him out. If not, he'll rot in prison for the rest of his life. He says to that cupbearer, please mention me to Pharaoh. V'zachartani, v'hizkartani, remember me, mention me. He says it twice. Chazal tell us an amazing thing. Because he said it twice, he was stuck in jail for 2 more years. He should have had faith. Yosef HaTzadik, Yosef the righteous one, the saint, was on such a high level in his bitachon in Hashem, in his relationship with Hashem, that he should not have depended on the cupbearer. Instead, he should have waited. He should have had bitachon. He should have seen it as a sign that Hashem is with him. And in this moment, the first time, okay, if he said it in passing, it's one thing. The problem was that he went on and on. He said, remember me. I was stolen. I was kidnapped from the house of the Hebrews. It wasn't my fault. I didn't do anything wrong. I was placed in jail. He says a whole sob story, an emotional story. Hoping that as a result of that, this wine bearer will indeed remember him. Mention him to Pharaoh. Mention him to Pharaoh. Get him out. Have compassion on me. I don't deserve to be here. It's not my fault. Now, what happens in the end? The cupbearer forgets him. The cupbearer forgets about him, right? As we all know. He's stuck in jail for another 2 years. And how does the cupbearer remember him? It wasn't because of his compassion for him. It wasn't because he felt bad for him. He remembers him because Pharaoh needs him. And as Rosh Hashiva pointed out, when you're in the presence of somebody like a Pharaoh who has the power of life and death over people, he just says, death. Right? You don't want to be around him when he's upset. As soon as he's upset, everyone's worried and nervous. And the Sarah Mashkim, perhaps even fearing for his own life, says, there's a guy in jail. His name is Yosef. You can pull him out. He's going to explain your dreams. He explained my dreams. He explained the baker's dreams. He's the right guy to speak to. But what's interesting is that Yosef, as we said, Yosef, he thought that it was going to come because because he's going to appeal to his emotions. But that's not exactly what happened at all. It was just because of his abilities. And Hashem had already planted that. It wasn't necessary for him to say anything to try to appeal to the emotions of this Sar HaMashkim. Okay, so we see, though, an amazing thing. We see an amazing thing, and that is Yosef is punished, it seems. Yosef is, he loses another 2 years. He's stuck in jail for 2 years because of this mistake that he makes. What's the idea? Why is it? And the answer, the reason, as the Alter Nevardik explains, according to Rosh Hashiva, is that Yosef is the person, just like Am Yisrael, as we said. Am Yisrael, the Jewish people, are the nation who's going to represent God in the world. We are the leaders of the world. Yosef HaTzadik is the leader of the Jewish people. He's going to lead and guide the Jewish people throughout their 70 years in Egypt, the first 70 years of their time in Egypt. That being the case, Yosef is the leader. He has to have a perfect bitachon. He has to have a much higher level of bitachon than is ordinarily required. He has to have inculcated into himself that sense of connection to Hashem, unwavering connection to Hashem. And if he loses it for a moment, he needs to see that that's not what's going to help him. When he gets out of jail, he realizes immediately it wasn't because of his emotional, impassioned plea to the Sar HaMashkim that he got out. It was because of Pharaoh, and it was because of the Sar HaMashkim, but not because of the way that he thought. And that's something that Hashem can teach us many times in our lives. That's the idea here. So this is foundational. This is why it was said at Har Sinai. This is why the mitzvah of Bitachon, which is contained in the mitzvah of Shemitah, was given at Har Sinai, because the Jewish people, in order to be the leaders of the world, we have to have that level of Bitachon. We have to know that Hashem is going to help us. He's going to save us. And I want to tell you just personally, I've been working on Bitachon. As you know, I've mentioned numerous times that we started a group, the Bitachon group. We're meeting once a week. We have a women's group, a men's group, and we are working on Bitachon. This is essential, especially in our times. So many things are, so many difficulties are going on in the world. So many challenges, whether it's spiritual challenges or challenges with our livelihood. There's so many things that are unsure, are uncertain. The only thing that is certain is Hashem. It's only God Himself. It's so essential that we work on this midah. As the Gra says, as we mentioned, the Gra says, this is why the Torah was given, in order to work on the midah of bitachon. I'm going to share with you, this is something that I've been working on for the last few months myself. I've been listening to Rosh Hashiva speak about it for almost close to 20 years. And the idea of bitachon, the idea of trust in Hashem, developing a trust in Hashem, knowing that I can rely on Hashem. And I have a story just this past week where there are two different parts of my mashkanta, my mortgage. One part is on the 10th, which is a certain amount, a bigger chunk of it. There's a smaller chunk that needs to be paid on the 15th of the month. And I wasn't sure exactly how I was going to make that money. Came the 14th of the month, I didn't know. I had done a few different things. I have to do my hishtadlus, I need to put in my efforts, open the possibilities, but I don't know where it's going to come from. I made up a song, I sent it out, a little bit of interest, didn't sell the song. That night, on the night of the 14th, I got a call from somebody that they wanted me to do a certain job involving studio work and recording and singing. And that job covered. I was able to have the guarantee of the money. That job was able to cover the mortgage for the 15th. I knew. I was speaking on the 14th to a friend of mine who we talk about Bitachon, a friend of mine in the Beis Medrash here nearby. And I said, I don't know exactly how I'm going to get that money, but I know I'm going to get that money. And a similar thing happened on Friday, where we needed a little bit of money to pay for the groceries. So there was some money that I had already put into the account for the following week, for this week. And I said to my wife, you can use that. I'm sure that Hashem will send me that money. Not exactly sure how. I'm sure that money Hashem will send it to me. And indeed, on Sunday morning, I was cleaning up after breakfast. There's a knock on the door, and the mailman had come with a registered mail envelope, and it was a letter from somebody in Germany, actually, who was very thankful to me about my music, the song Hashem Loves You, and he knew that I had done a crowdfunding last year, and so he sent me a very nice amount of money that more than covered the amount of money that I needed. And these are the types of things, when a person has bitachon, when a person has trust in Hashem, these are the kinds of things that happen all the time. These are the kinds of things that it's possible to experience, it's possible to have, to know When a person trusts in my tchum, the way that I make my livelihood is through music. And sometimes there's jobs, sometimes there's more jobs, sometimes there's less. But I've seen throughout my time, I've been married for almost 18 years, Baruch Hashem. And throughout this time, Hashem has always provided. Hashem always provides. The question is, how much efforts do we need to do? And Hashem will often show us, as He showed me this past week, it wasn't from the effort that I put in. It wasn't the song that I made up and thought maybe that would be it. I felt like I do need to do that. I do need to put in an effort. The effort may or may not produce fruits. It could be I'll sell that song in a few months from now, or next year, or in a few years, or not. But Hashem shows me. Hashem will show you, and Hashem is trying to tell us here in the Torah that it's not our efforts. We have to maybe do efforts in order to show that we're willing. We're not just being lazy and saying, "Oh Hashem, you do it for me." But I'm willing to do whatever needs to be done. It could be that that's an important part of it. That's why we need to do ishtadlus, perhaps. We need to put in efforts. But Hashem shows us that it's not our efforts, that's not where it comes from. I can make a phone call here trying to get a job. I can send out an email there trying to get a job. Nothing pans out from it. Suddenly something will come from somewhere else. Hashem shows it all the time. It's something that I personally experience all the time. The Torah is telling us, in the first year, when you're worried about the seventh year, don't worry about the seventh year. Do something which is against your normal Jewish nature. Go against your nature. The Torah tells us, don't worry about the seventh year. You have what you need today. Have gratitude. We spoke last week about gratitude. Have gratitude for what you have today. Say, thank you, Hashem, that I have what I need. I have my health. I have my family. I have a home. I have a car. Thank you, Hashem. Don't worry about next week. Don't worry about next year. Don't worry about 7 years from now. I have to be responsible. Yes, I have to be responsible. But everything has to be with a balance and with an understanding that ultimately it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's Hashem who is taking care of me. I could put away millions of dollars in who knows where. Hashem can easily take that away as well, right? As the Madrigas Adam says, the Alter Navardik says, that when a person has Bitachon, when a person has trust and faith in God, so he's more sure about the money that he is trusting Hashem will give him tomorrow or today than the money that's in his pocket, because the money that's in his pocket could be stolen, could be lost. But the money that he has Bitachon that Hashem is going to send him, that's guaranteed, because Hashem guarantees it. If you have trust in me, I'm going to be your miftach. I'm going to be trustworthy. I'm going to be the one that you can depend upon. That is the mitzvah of Shemitah. That is the idea, and that's we, each and every one of us, as a member of the Jewish people, we have an obligation, all of us. This is a national mitzvah. Shemitah, Bitachon, trusting in God. It's the foundation of the Torah. Why? Because we are the leaders of the Jewish people, as my Rosh Hashiva said. We are the leaders, that's true as well. We are the leaders of the entire world. And each and every one of us is a leader in our homes, is a leader amongst in our communities, is a leader amongst the Jewish people, and we nationally are the leader of the entire world. So we have an obligation. It's not just a nice thing to trust in Hashem. It's not just a cool thing, if I trust in Hashem, so everything works out. This is an obligation. We have an obligation to trust in Hashem. And when we have bitachon in Hashem, when we trust in Hashem, Hashem should be mezakas. I ask you to bless me, and I'm blessing you. Hashem should give us the merit to be able to live in our land, to be able to keep the mitzvah of Shemitah. But not just that, but to be able to understand the depth of the mitzvah, that it's all about trusting Hashem. Hashem should help us to have that faith. Hashem should help us to be those leaders within our communities and for the entire world. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful Shabbos. This podcast was made possible through the gracious donations of listeners like you. For more podcasts like this, please visit www.arigoldwag.com or search on iTunes Ari Goldwag.